so okay, those two first stats, the aggression percentage and the win when soft flop, those two are I combine to see what kind of aggressivity I'm dealing with. If I'm dealing with somebody passive, if I'm dealing with somebody that's a regular stats, regular player, or if I'm playing against somebody that's a maniac.
Okay.
The two next showdown stats are the when to showdown and won money at showdown. So the when to showdown stats I'll use to see how much I can barrel off a villain. So, for example, somebody that's really tight is going to have a when to showdown number low. So the standard for a when to showdown number is going to be in between 23 and 27, something like that. So anybody that's lower than 23 is going to be the type of person that folds a lot of, maybe top pair with a bad kicker.
Yeah.
Basically, it's going to be somebody that folds much more than they should.
Okay.
And those are the type of people you want to be exploiting because since they fold a lot, then they become much more easy to be bluffed, right?
Yeah.
So if I want to run a bluff on three streets, I'm gonna pick and choose my villain. If I see that let me check here. We'll just take this Max Meister guy again, who has 41 of when to showdown, which is incredibly high. Let's say the hand sample would be higher. Let's say it would be 1,700 hands or whatnot, and he'd still be at 41 when to showdown. I'd consider this guy a fish, a calling station if you want.
Yeah.
And I would just go for value all day against him, and not bluff him too much. So the standard, like I said, is in between 23 and 28. Anything over 28 is going to be a little bit more stationy. So, what are the guy you got? So here, big Siaga, whatever his name is, with a 28. So he's kind of, and we got 1.2k hands on it. So he's kind of on the margin of being of calling a lot, right?
Yeah.
And if you join these stats with the aggression percentage and the win when soft flop, what do you see here?
That's a very good question.
What kind of player is he?
Can you just repeat the stats, please?
Yeah, well, we're looking at this big Siaga guy. He's 1712. The aggression percentage is 31%. The
Yeah.
win soft flop is 41. The went to showdown is at 28. So let's forget about the one money at showdown for now, and let's just use those three stats combined with his VPIP and pre-flop raise.
What I see is a guy that's aggressive, but it doesn't seem to bluff a lot. So I would have to believe him when I get to the river and he bets or he checks raises me.
Okay, so when you say he's an aggressive guy, why do you say that?
17-12. There's not a lot of difference between the two, between the VPIP and the PFR. So when he gets his hand, he just goes with it. At least that's the way I see it.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree with that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. You're the coach, man.
Yeah, when I look at 1712, all that tells me is that he's very tight, right?
Yeah.
Of course, these are full ring games, and if I'd see somebody like that in a six max game, obviously I would snap label him as a nit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think, looking at his showdown stats, it tells me that he's aggressive.
Okay.
When I look at the c-bet stats, combined with the showdown stats and the VPIP and pre-flop raise, this tells me that he's a very passive guy.
He's a passive guy?
Very passive.
Oh, okay.
He's a very passive guy because, like we said before, aggression percentage, the average is going to be between 30 and 40. So somebody that's at 31 is on the more passive side.
Oh, I heard 41. Sorry about that.
The win-win soft flop, anybody that's lower than 42 is going to be somebody that's on the passive side.
Okay, sorry about that, Alex.
It's all good. So when you combine those two stats with his VPIP PFR, and if you glance at his CBET stats on the flop is going to be 65, 29 on the turn. So I'm sure if I open the tab here and look at his aggression is going to be lower and lower on each street.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So
And there's a big drop between the flop and the turn too.
big drop between that and the river also. So he's at 42 on the flop, which is, kind of aggressive, I'd say. But he gives up on the turn and river when he doesn't hit, right? So if this guy was to, let's say he's early position, he opens, you call on the button, and so he bets a board of Jack Deuce 5, Rainbow, and then he bets again on the turn. When he bets again on the turn, the minimum hand I'm going to be putting him on is a Jack.
That would make sense.
Right? Because he's not the type of guy that's going to be picking up a flush draw, a straight draw, or whatever on the turn, and he's going to continue barreling it. He's just not that type of guy. So when he bets twice against me, I'll be folding some pretty decent holding to him because, exploitatively speaking, he just doesn't barrel enough, right? So the way to exploit this guy is just to float, right? So you float him in position, he makes his standard continuation bet, he checks the turn, and you can most likely pick it up on the turn with a bet.
If you were out of position, would you change your approach?
Yes. Yes, I'd be calling tighter, and I wouldn't be reverse floating or whatnot, or floating out of position, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
Let's say I have king queen off, and it's a jack high board, and he barrels out of position. I'm just not going to take the turn,
Mm-hmm.
So this guy is definitely a passive type guy.
Okay.
If we look at Max Meister here, and let's say we had more hands on him,
He's a maniac.
this guy is a 23-16 playing full ring. So this guy is definitely loose for a full ring game.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at his CBET stats, 71, 50, and 99 is kind of high. I don't know if I can get so he's only barreled once on the river because he's only seen the river once where he was barreling the flop and the turn, right? So that doesn't tell us much because of the hand sample size. But
What's the kind of sample size that we need for the showdown stats?
well, like I said before, the 4 showdown stats are going to be the stats that are going to converge the fastest. So within 500 hands, you can have a pretty good idea of how the opponent is playing.
Okay,
Of course,
500.
yeah, of course, the more hands you're going to be getting on him, the better your read is going to become.
Yeah.
But after 500 hands, it's a decent sample size enough to make somewhat accurate decisions.
Okay, nice.